in my brain, everybody's my opponent. I got to beat everybody. And the ones that were closer to me maybe not beating, I would make things hard for them, right? Because I wanted to outperform them.
So basically, in a zombie apocalypse, be faster than you, but maybe not too close because you'll step on my toes.
I will trip you. You need to stay at least 5 feet ahead of me. If you're within 2 or 3 feet, you're going to trip. You're listening to the Learnings and Missteps podcast, where we intend to change the image of careers in the trades. We celebrate the real men and women who have built careers in the construction industry by bringing their personal stories straight to you. I began my career as a plumber's apprentice in the late 1900s. Over the last 26 years, I've had the fortune of meeting some of the most resilient, intelligent, and inspiring people who happen to be construction workers. My career path as a plumber has provided me with experiences and opportunities I thought were inaccessible. And I want you to know that the trades are a place where dreams can come true. These stories are brought to you by three brothers who share a mother. I am Jesse, your host. Our in-house writer is Ernest, aka La Voz.
Hello.
And our co-host, Renee.
What's up?
Welcome back, L&M family. And to all you newcomers, super excited to introduce to you the culture-building one and only Jillian Hubbard. She's a mother of four, electrical apprentice, started her career in the trade years back, took a pause, came back to it, and she's ready to tear it up. In this episode, Jillian does not steer away from the down and dirty details that many of us have experienced out there in the industry. It's not the most hospitable place. In some cases, it can be amazing, but we get into the reality of what the hell to expect. Jillian ensures that we talk about the realities of what could be in the industry. And through that courageous conversation, I end up sharing a personal truth that hasn't been talked about on this podcast yet. So hang in there and hope you enjoy the show. One last thing. We've set up a Patreon account for those of you who want to further contribute to our mission of changing the images of careers in the trades. Signing up at patreon.com/learnings and missteps will get you access to exclusive content and your names in the opening credits of the video versions of these episodes. Yeah, you heard me right. We got that fire for you, baby, on YouTube. Love y'all, and here we go.
I forget what it is that you do.
So I get to deal with a lot of rejection. And once we get past the rejection, I get to help people make their day suck less.
Nice.
Like that's the whole point of it. But it's change, and people, we don't like change. Human beings don't like change.
I'm one to embrace it, though.
It's so much more fun, right?
I flourish with constant movement and change. But yes. I think that's one of the reasons why I like construction so much is we do get to experience so much. If I ever had to sit in a cubicle and try to work at an office, I would be so bored.
Oh my goodness. I would get fired.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not enough.
Stimulation.
You nailed it. It's the stimulation, right? The auditory, visual, like everything on a job site will keep me calm. But in an office, there's just not enough stimulation that I start, like all my weird tics come out. I'm loud. I talk a lot. I make noises. I don't even know I'm making noises, but I make noises or I sing and I hum. And when I first hit a job site right out of high school, like right. Nobody's getting mad at me for all my stuff. The environment is amazing, and it's not for everybody, but I think there's a lot of people out there that are probably already predisposed or best suited for it.
100% agree with that, especially with kids. It's not something that comes naturally. Their way of being and their way of working outside of the box, where a lot of times it could be considered strange or odd, it actually is way more common, and they would flourish in more of a hands-on blue-collar atmosphere instead of an office space because they're not built that way. Like for me, the way that my brain works, it's a problem-solving brain. So I'm constantly dissecting. It really helps with construction. I am able to see different objectives. And a lot of times when you're out in the field, you need to be able to work on the fly like that. You know, when we have the plans in front of us, we have like a set list of what it is that we need to get done, but nothing ever works like a perfect puzzle in the field. And so we need to be able to adjust and adapt. There's a lot of times where people who think too much and over process, it actually works out really good for leadership positions in the field.
That brings a question to my mind, because I have a theory. And so we're talking about kind of the environment that best suits people for their way of thinking and the way they function and interact with their space. Or maybe I'm just trying to make myself feel better, but hear me out. My theory is there are people that struggle with the status quo. And there are people, and from a young age, let's say middle school and up, they struggle with just following arbitrary rules. They need to understand what the purpose of the rule is. And so they end up becoming this kind of rebel against everything, right? That's what people see in them. Like, man, can't you just go with the flow? As they're maturing, they may take the path least traveled. They may be troublemakers. And my theory is those types of instances prepares them for what a leader actually has to deal with in terms of guiding a team, being adapting to a situation, problem solving in the moment to go down a path that has not been established yet.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I definitely agree with that. I've definitely in the field been considered a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what's funny is I've been considered a problem because I'm extremely passionate about safety and making sure that my team and those around me are safe. And I have been vocal about situations that were not safe and were not good environments. And I'm ballsy enough to actually open my mouth. Whereas a lot of the guys, they just kind of, like you said, they just follow the lane of least resistance. For me, as somebody who holds myself to a standard, I also hold those around me to a standard.
Sure.
And so that can be a little bit challenging, especially as a female, because as much as I'd like to say that we don't have that stigma anymore in the industry, we definitely do. There's still a lot of like old mindset when it comes to females in the industry. Last summer, there was a situation on a job site. It was a near miss. I almost got smashed in the head with 2 different cinder blocks that came from the 3rd story. At the time, I had just gone to my foreman on the job and I had said something to him. I said, "Hey, I'm pissed." He's like, "Why are you pissed?" I said, "This just happened." And he's like, "Okay, well, what are you going to do about it?" I said, "I'm going to go find them and I'm going to say something because this is not okay." So I had ended up getting into a verbal back and forth with him on the job site, which is inappropriate. It is inappropriate. But when you almost die on a job site, you're going to get into an argument. I got punished. I ended up cooling off with my team, having coffee. I was good. I was going to continue my day. My company sent me home for the day because the GC had threatened to take me off the job site indefinitely. So they wanted to appease them because they do a lot of work for that.
Of course.
And later that day, I get a phone call from the owner, right? And I'm still like rattled. I'm still rattled.
Oh, yeah.
I will never forget the first question that came out of their mouth. It wasn't, "Hey, I heard what went on. Are you okay? Do you want to let me know what it is that had gone on from your perspective?" It was, "So what's your plan?" First sentence. And I'm like, I don't know. What's my plan? Am I supposed to be scared and leave the industry because one asshole did something terrible? And he next said, "Well, we want you to go back to that job site tomorrow." And I'm just like shocked, and uncomfortable because now not only was I taken off of a job site and been treated as though I was in the wrong. I had caused a scene, but not only did I cause a scene, it was a chain of command issue. Even though we're all supposed to vouch for our own safety on a job site, and that's what every OSHA class you ever take says. Being a female and being an apprentice on a job site, and then also being passionate about safety and also a mom, all these different things, it really is hard to tell when to shut up and when to advocate for myself. And so for me, it's like, okay, well, when is it appropriate? When is it okay for me to advocate myself? If I'm getting told that I'm wrong, when I almost get hit in the head with 2 cinder blocks, and it could have been anybody. You know, that that's not okay. It bothered me because it was putting myself at risk, but it was also putting everybody else around me at risk. And there was multiple things that were going against OSHA. And I know in the industry, we always have things that are like, that's frowned upon. But there are certain standards that shouldn't be crossed. And that was one that definitely, it rattled me, and it made me definitely see my team that I was working with. It made me see the upper management in a different light. And it made me realize that I didn't matter. I wasn't even asked how I was. I was just told that I was wrong. And I felt like from that moment on, I was put into situations that were intentionally made challenging so that I would potentially quit. And I never did. It wasn't until I got COVID from a job site. I got really sick with the upper respiratory virus, and I'm an asthmatic. And then I struggled with being able to go back. I said I really couldn't do it unless I could just be socially distanced. It was just this whole thing. Within 24 hours, I was laid off because of lack of work. You know, at first I was like, holy crap, like, wow. I was so disappointed because I had given myself so much to this company, but I could tell like it didn't start then. It started back in July when this situation happened. And then they finally saw the opportunity to remove me, and they took it. And to be honest, best thing they could have ever done, because quite frankly, I got COVID really bad. And like I said, I am an asthmatic, and so now like I'm still recovering a little bit. Like my breathing is still labored. Even like talking like this, it's a little tight in my chest. It really did work out in a good way. It's just so wild how things really shift when you're in the industry. And my point for saying that has kind of gotten away from me. But basically, there's a big difference between leaders and people who are in leadership positions. I think that there's a lot of times when these people who are more considered troublemakers, it's really that they're not troublemakers. It's that they exercise their freedom of thought, and they exercise their freedom of being. And the people who are in charge, it can be challenging for them because they feel threatened or they feel challenged in some way. And I think that when you're a leader, you have to be able to be open-minded enough to understand that everybody around you isn't going to think the exact same way as you, and you have to accept that.
You just got to have the substance to say, I don't have to know everything. And you know what? I'm surrounded by a dozen people, and I bet with everybody's idea, we can come up with something great. When you're talking about leaders and people in leadership positions, it sounds like the organization that you were with has a command and control style, and that GC that you were on that project working with, command and control. Like that is prevalent in our industry. And so it's kind of shut up and just do what I tell you. Unfortunately, they have had success functioning that way. Years, decades of success. So the likelihood of them changing their style is very small. Leaders, not people in leadership positions, leaders recognize that their primary function is to keep the people safe and help them develop their capabilities. It's a whole different ballgame. So it makes me wonder, so you worked with this one company in that one job site, and my assumption is that that's not the only company or job site you've ever been on?
No, it's not. Back in 2006 and 7, I worked with a couple other companies.
Yep.
The first one that I had ever been on, and mind you, at that time, I was an 18-year-old girl, fresh out of high school, thrown into the fire. 2006 was a much different world than 2021. As an apprentice, and like me being a mom of 4, an apprentice and a female in their 30s, like obviously I want to be here, people. I came back for a reason. As an 18-year-old girl being on a job site, it was before all of this like feminism. It's before the Me Too movement. There were all sorts of drawings inside of the porterlets with my name all over it. There were catcalling, there was touching sometimes, there was inappropriate language all the time. It was a much different world. So like having the butt up and shut up matched with the female side of things too, it's kind of like a double negative of struggle, and like even harder to navigate, like I said, with like, when do you advocate for yourself and when do you just be a good apprentice? There was a lot of stuff on that job site. It ended up coming down to one of their journeymen didn't like me or like that I was a female. I'm not exactly sure. And they basically gave them an ultimatum of me or them, and they were there forever. So, of course, I got the boot. But the funny thing is, the low voltage company that was on the job site that I was on was like, we just saw everything that went down and we heard they're getting rid of you. And we are so excited because we want you. So follow us back to the shop. We see how you work and we see what you deal with. And like, we want you on our team. And I worked for them for a while before I moved from Connecticut to out west. And I loved it there. I did like low voltage and fiber optics and building data rooms. I actually really enjoyed it a lot. So there was those 3 companies that I really worked with. So I have had good experience, but I wish I could say I had more. I'm still looking for the team that I can like be brought into and like trust and like know that they have my back, and also like grow as an electrician and like become an efficient, effective, able-bodied electrician, and like also help them grow their teams and their business and their company. Like I'm still looking for who it is that will be my fit.
Yes, this is going to sound calloused, but I'm very pleased that you have had a negative experience in the industry. I said it and now I'm like, that doesn't sound right. But anyway,
no, I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? Because, we've interviewed, I don't know, half a dozen ladies so far on the podcast. And they've all had like really great experiences. And of course the dudes, right? We don't have the same struggles that you do. And the reality is it's not always a welcoming environment. It can be very, very challenging. Personalities, very short-sighted thinking or old thinking really affects people in general, but ladies especially. I mean, I remember when I was a first-year apprentice, I worked with the journeyman, and he gave me an assignment. Like he asked me to do a couple things. He said, grab the bandsaw and cut this. I'm like, what's a bandsaw?
Yeah.
Right. And he said, all right, you don't know what a band. Like... Yeah, exactly. He said, get the snap cutters and get me some of that cast iron. I said, what are the snap? Like, I didn't know. I just freaking got out of high school, bro. Yeah. Like, I don't know. And he says, you know what? Take this plumb bob. This was before lasers. I'll tell you how long.
I know what a plumb bob is.
Awesome. Back in my day. So he said, take this plumb bob, go upstairs, drop it down the hole so he could center up, and just hold it there until I call you. I said, all right, and cool. So and he left me up there for 4 hours.
Jeez.
And
he didn't tell you to move. So what are you gonna do?
I follow
direction.
You got it. And the foreman comes up and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Man, I've been only this thing here." He's like, "Really? Like, how long you been here?" I said, 4 hours. And he says, and he was pissed, right? But he didn't take it out on me. He went and jumped on old boy and said, "What the hell are you doing?" And he's like, "Well, that guy don't know." My point is, there are journeymen out there that feel threatened by youth.
Yeah.
Right. Like we're going to take or not we, but the youth, the younger folks, the younger generation are going to take their job. And so that's transcendent, right? Whatever gender you are. And then you're a woman, like that's a totally different thing. I have no idea, but the point in it is for the L&M fam out there that are thinking about their kids or their friends or family member entering the industry, is be very selective about the company you go work for.
You got to remember what your worth is. There is no reason why you should go home feeling like garbage and come into work dreading it. Aside from me doing electrical and being in construction, I'm also a holistic healer.
Ooh, I am interested in that.
We could get so much more out of our teams if we focus more on culture and how our people are feeling, and like doing these different personality tests and matching personality tests with our people. Yes. And then teaming them up that way. That's why I'm going to run my company. I'm just going to throw it out there right now. Like, I'm going to have an extremely efficient company that is very family focused and people are going to love it. But like, it's so important to understand how other people work. It's like, what's the perfect journeyman? What's the perfect team? Nobody has every single one of those facets. But if you pair the people together that have all those sides, they're unstoppable. They're the most efficient team that you can possibly create, and people don't focus on that.
Yep.
And so one of the things that I've noticed as an apprentice is like, okay, so I don't know what that is, or I'm taking too long. Show me how to do it faster. I understand me having to figure things out on my own to a degree, but if we're in a time crunch and you need that production, then I'm sorry, but don't have me try to figure it out 18 different ways or struggle for like 3 or 4 hours and then complain about how I took too long. Just show me how to do it. Show me how to do it efficiently the first couple of times. So then you don't even have to show me. You can just tell me and I will know exactly how to do it correctly, the most efficient way possible. We expect a lot from these green apprentices, like with you. And we expect so much. Like, okay, if you didn't know what the saw was, you didn't know what these different objects were, what he should have done is taken an hour to show you all the different things that you guys work with or everything that's relevant for that job. Explain how they're used and which things go together. That way, when he's like, okay, this is setup 1, this is like setup 2, this is what setup 3 is, and this is what it's for. If we looked at people not in a way that we shame them, because that seems to be very prevalent in the industry. Shaming people. Don't shame people and then also bitch about their productivity, because that's on you. I've also been told by journeymen that it's not their job to teach me. And I'm like, that's literally your job. Like, exactly. I am here to learn. That's the whole point. I'm supporting you and you teach me. That's this. That's
the relationship. That's the deal, man. You nailed it. I'm sharing this because I want to give you some hope. I think I already heard you say.
I'm still really jazzed about the industry, and I have had like positive experiences. It's definitely, but I'm also a very honest and real person. I don't want to paint a picture that it's just like all sunshine and rainbows, because I do think that there's a lot of people out there that are talking about the industry and they are painting in a way that it's really great. It is great, but there is challenges. And if we're not talking about those things aren't going to be improved. We have to talk about our shortcomings in order to be able to fix them. I love all of it. Like, obviously, just like anybody else, like watching something go from nothing and just blueprints. I love blueprints. I love checking all that stuff out. Although I do think architects and engineers should have to have field experience before they can actually make plans. Like, I love seeing something go from just plans to something grandiose that everybody for decades gets to enjoy it. It's so fulfilling. And I think it's one of the reasons why all of us are in our industries.
I agree. We get the plans. It's a good map. But it doesn't tell you that there's going to be an accident on the freeway and you're going to have to exit and detour and reroute to get to your destination. And that's where the problem solving comes in. Like, okay, I've got to fill in the blanks, and I've got to do it safe, and I got to maintain quality, and I got to maintain production. And we get to do that. And at the end of the day, we get to say, man, look what I did, right? Every single day you get to turn around and look at it. Those are the great days. But to your point, there are a lot of really crappy days. Talking about reality, it was the first time I was a foreman on a project. I spoke up, right? We were having this roundtable, worked for an amazing organization. So we had a roundtable breakfast with the CEO, right? Which is scary, right? And he just asked the group, like, how are things out there? Everybody said what they were supposed to say. Oh, it's great. It's such a wonderful opportunity to work for the company. And I've been there about a year, and I'm like, well, it's not that great. People use it. I saw you post something on LinkedIn, right? Drug abuse and substance abuse on the job site. Like, this was back in 98, 99, maybe 2000. Anyways, it was happening on the job site with our people. And so I'm like, I came to this company because the culture talked about servant leadership, career growth, different type of thinking, but I'm not seeing it out there. And immediately after that, 2 other people, after I spoke up, they jumped in also. One person was demoted and sent to the project furthest away from
That's
home.
what happened to me. I'm a mother of 4, and I was sent 140 miles a day. It was an hour and a half each direction.
Exactly what they did. So the other guy, he stayed on the job, and I got a call from the big boss, and he said, not the CEO, like the production manager inside the business unit. And he says, I want you to get so-and-so, get him under that building, because under the building, there was about 4 foot of space.
Crawl space.
Yes, crawl space. So you couldn't stand up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just enough to really bust your back all day long.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So he said, I want you to get him under the building. I want him to dig a ditch. And when he's done digging that hole, right, dig it 8 foot long by 3 foot wide by 2 foot
Send
deep.
it home or something.
No, he said, have him fill it back up. That's what he needs to learn the lesson. And I said, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
No.
That's
literally considered retaliation. That's harassment.
You got it. You guys, I'm not doing that. I've got a schedule to meet, and he's a human being. I'm not going to do that. Do what you want to send me to that other job so I can go push a broom, or you want to fire me, please do so. I'm letting you know right now that ain't going to happen. And it's a few weeks of that kind of stuff, but it was real. Like, this isn't make believe. What you're saying is not make believe. No. There are shitty people out there that will not respect you. They will do what they can to undermine you, discredit you, and make you quit. And here's another confession. When I was young and early in my career, I had a lot of the same traits. If there was somebody on the team that I felt was an opponent, like, because everybody in my brain, everybody's my opponent. I got to beat everybody. And the ones that were closer to me maybe not beating, I would make things hard for them, right? Because I wanted to outperform them.
So basically, in a zombie apocalypse, be faster than you, but maybe not too close because you'll step on my toes.
I will trip you. You need to stay at least 5 feet ahead of me. If you're within 2 or 3 feet, you're going to trip somehow. I can't blame that on the environment because I know myself. I'm a very competitive person. And, in those early immature years, I would win at all costs. Now, because I know that I'm a competitive person, the way I leverage that is I surround myself with amazing, super talented people because it pushes me to grow and learn more.
Exactly. You weren't being challenged enough with those around you. So then it was like you were acting out like those kids in school.
Yep. How am I supposed to soar with the eagles when I'm surrounded by turkeys? Construction, I love it. And I've had a lot of really miserable ass experiences. It sounds like you have too. And it's very easy for me to focus on all the amazing stuff because I have had tremendously amazing experiences. And it's a direct result of choosing a career in the trades. But I think you're right. I know you're right in that it is irresponsible to not talk about the realities and what needs to be done to improve it. I was talking to a friend the other day. I work for a pretty amazing organization where our porta potty, we've got rules. If there's any graffiti in the porta potty, job shuts down. Like, that's not going to be tolerated, right?
Yeah.
We have every job site I go to across the country has specific facilities for the ladies.
I requested a porterlet on the same job that I almost died on. That was an issue. Right. I asked where hand washing stations were. We were in the middle of COVID. There's no way to wash our hands, and there's no sanitizer anywhere. I asked about it. That puts me on the chopping block.
We shouldn't even be talking about that. It should be automatic.
Right.
And that's today. That's modern day, right? I'm with an organization that we're gonna have plenty of clean portalets. I mean, I'll tell you what. This might sound silly, but since I've been with this company about 3 years now, I have never walked into a porta potty that didn't have toilet paper.
That's amazing. There you go. Boom.
Right. We're talking about basic human needs, and we're celebrating. Because before, it was like, you better bring your own because there ain't going to be no toilet paper. Forget about facilities for a lady. The point is, we have both of these situations out there and everything in between, right? You got the one out there like yourself. Hey, I'm on site. I should have a porta potty. And somebody's say, like, what do you mean? Like, use the men's. Like, bro, I know you don't use it. I know you jump in your truck and go down to the gas station to go because you know how horrible those freaking things are. Get cleaned once a week or once every 2 weeks because they want to save a penny. There are realities, and I thank you for bringing that to the forefront of this conversation.
I try to keep things as real as possible. I love the industry so much, and that's why after having a 12-year gap after raising my kid, me finding out that my apprenticeship hours were still good, that I ran as fast as I could toward the opportunity to really get back in there and reignite my career. And I had first discovered construction my freshman year of high school because I actually went to a vocational technical high school. My freshman year, I was able to sample about a dozen or so different trades. And my favorites were carpentry and electrical. I actually had gone there for culinary because I liked cooking, but my passion for electrical just like grew every single moment I was there, and like magnetism and the theory and all of it. Electricity is cool. There's so much. And on top of me having like a very articulate, very problem solving sort of brain, I'm also a very visual person. And so lighting concepts and coming up with different schemes, it gets me really jazzed up.
You mentioned in high school, freshman years, when you first got exposed to construction, carpentry, and electrical.
Yeah, there wasn't plumbing, but
Well,
yeah.
they save that for the elite people, right? That's a different school. No.
So the way that they ran my high school is 2 weeks in shop, whatever one we had, and then 2 weeks academics. So for people like us who like that constant change, 2 weeks and 2 weeks was kind of nice because it broke things up.
Oh yeah. Now in middle school, what was it that you wanted to be when you grew up?
I don't know. I always really gravitated towards science, which I guess with doing like Reiki and my holistic healing stuff, and then also electrical, it's all kind of science. I don't know. I don't really know what I wanted to be before an electrician.
Really?
Like, an electrician was like the first thing that ever I really gravitated toward on a serious level. And so like in high school, I wanted to become an electrical inspector. Like that was what I wrote my paper on my senior year. And I had this whole like map drawn out, like how I'd become an electrical inspector by like, I don't know, 36 or 37, but nowhere in there was there any time to become a mother. That's another thing that we don't really talk about with teenagers because we don't want to talk about sex. When you're deciding your careers too, as a teen and as a parent who's helping their teen do these things, like family planning, as silly as it is, figuring out like when you might want to be a parent is important too, because these apprenticeships, I'm not sure how the other trades are, but it's at least 5 years. Then it's around the same as college and stuff, but sometimes kids take time off, but they don't think as far as parenthood goes and how our careers affect our parenthood, how a career in construction is challenging in the way of childcare. Childcare is extremely challenging because I don't have a significant other at home every day who can help me get the kids on the bus. So I'll have to leave the house at like 5 a.m. a lot of the times to get to my job. Daycares aren't open at 5 a.m. So when we're talking about all these different sides of it and figuring out plans of action, I think that these are things that we overlook, like even as adults.
There's I think a lesson that I've had many, many times. We set goals all the time, right? Everybody tells you got to have a goal, you got to have a plan, right? Yeah. And I'm good at writing plans and good at setting goals. But what I think I've discovered through a lot of pain is for every goal, there is sacrifice. Right? To achieve, I used to be a marathon runner about 30 pounds ago. And I was dead set on running the full 26.2 miles in under 4 hours before I turned 40. What I didn't account for was that I'm going to be running about 20 hours a week and how that was going to impact my sleep, my work, my personal relationships. And it's my nature to say, okay, I'm not going to let it affect my work. I need my sleep. So guess which one suffered? Personal relationships. And so it's the reality of for every goal, there is a sacrifice.
All right. So another thing with industry, like timelines, like why don't we give ourselves a little bit more time? For some reason, we think like with that competitive mentality, like, oh, I can do it faster. But then we don't hit deadlines. And then the customer is like, what the heck, man? You said you could
Yep.
make this happen.
So there's a lot of research out there that talks about how horrible we are at estimating time.
It really does all come down to time management. I think that's probably where some of this like itch in me kind of.
Yeah, because you see, like, what are you doing, crazies? This isn't gonna, like, we've never been able to perform in that timeline, and you're going and committing again, fool. Like, it ain't gonna happen. You are speaking my love language, because that is like, come on, people, let's think about this a little bit. Now, you're talking about the realities of family planning and how you applied that so that you had a seamless life as an adult.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
Well, I was, when you're in high school, most of the time, kids are thinking about parenthood, and especially when you're growing up from 13 years old to 17, freshman year on, and you're just like literally being plugged away into the construction industry. You're getting your feathers fluffed, you're getting like really into it, you're learning. It wasn't even a thought in my head. My oldest two daughters, their dad joined the military, and he actually went to the same high school as me. He took diesel, but he was in the Army, and we got stationed out in Washington State. And me, again, not being a full person yet, 19-year-old girl, I didn't think to look to see if my hours transferred for my apprenticeship to Washington State, and they did not. So I had to stop my career right there. Like, looking back, I'm like, no, you didn't. You could have just started a brand new apprenticeship there. But
sure.
But for me, I was like, I've already invested 3,000 hours.
It's the end of the world.
I'm losing
all of this time. Yep.
I don't want to start over. So I had stopped, and then I had my kids, and then I was just, raising them and doing different entrepreneurial activities. My ex-husband, he lost his job in November 2019, and he wasn't seeming to be getting one anytime soon. And I was getting to the point where I was getting anxious. When you're a mom, I do feel like we kind of treat moms in a way that is less than. When moms are ready to get back out there into the careers, we don't welcome them with open arms like we should. Like, they were just raising humans. They're managing people, like millions of schedules, all these different things. Like, there's so many beautiful traits that mothers have. Yes. And we don't really recognize them as that. A lot of times they're downplayed as, well, they were just home unemployed raising children.
Just chilling, right? Like, not doing anything.
Yeah, that's the
feet up on the chair, taking it easy because it's a walk in the park.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's absolutely not.
But, when they're getting back out there into the industry, so I was a little bit nervous because I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to make like really crap money. I was trying to think, like, what can I do to try to bring in any sort of income that is as close as I can to what was lost for my household. Like, what can I do to do that? And for some reason, I got really drawn to figuring out if I had anything going on with my apprenticeship, because it was like the very beginning, like the very spark of me being able to reignite my dream of becoming an electrician again. Like, my son, who's the youngest, he was starting kindergarten this last year. So I was able to really like think about that, and he'd be at school full time. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't give up my dream. I just postponed it. And that was so empowering to recognize I didn't give anything up. I just had to put it on pause for a while. And I think that a lot of times with moms, we do get broken down with our own minds, but then sometimes we have really amazing people around us, but a lot of times there is society around us and some people's mentality around society. So it kind of breaks us down, and it makes us feel like we did give up everything and that we can't get back into it. So I just hope that my messages come across in a positive way, but also inspire some of these women who have had the passion to be in the industry in all the different trades and had to put a pause on it because they didn't think about motherhood and childcare. And I hope that some of them will even consider like reigniting their passions too, because it's so huge.
When we're pursuing our passions, life has color, right? When we feel like it's impossible or unattainable, life is pretty damn great. So you mentioned Reiki. Is it Reiki or Reiki?
Reiki. Reiki.
Reiki.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a Japanese form of healing, and it works within the chakra system, so the energy systems within our bodies.
Okay.
So a lot of people will recognize chakras as like being in a yoga studio and that female figure that's sitting in like a cross-legged pose, and and all the so that's the 7 main chakras that everybody seems to know about, but we actually have hundreds throughout our bodies. And I like to describe a chakra as 2 energy points in our bodies where they're coming together. So you can think of it like gears. So when everything's in the flow, everything's moving good. But then if one area is blocked up, you get jammed and everything stops. And so that's when we're experiencing dis-ease. That's when we're experiencing physical manifestations of those things. We experience anxieties or depression. It can even help with people that struggle with PTSD and all sorts of different ailments that a person has, either physically or mentally or emotionally. It's really incredible. I've gotten to work with a lot of really cool people in the industry who do a lot of different sort of things. The way that I work with people, I have a hard time describing completely. So I just say holistic, because, you know, I do work with crystals. Crystals have energy. Everything has frequency, right? So crystals, I work with essential oils. I do light therapy. There's a light that I specifically use. It's called a happy light, actually, but it helps with PMDD. So like people who struggle with postpartum, but also in general depression. But then you have like the seasonal depression stuff. And then I also do like the Tibetan singing bowls, and I even made a drum out of elk hide. Like I'm like so into everything. It's pretty deep. And I also help to empower women, and I've created individualized workshops and helped people with running their homes more efficiently, and worked with small businesses on their marketing. When we start bringing these things that are in our subconscious to our conscious, or these things that are like normally in the dark, like this whole conversation, and we're like bringing light to it, we're recognizing areas that can be improved, and we are, I guess, putting it upon ourselves to be part of the change, because we can't talk about it in a way that is negative. We can't complain, because that's just not helpful to anything. So like recognizing where our shortcomings are. And this goes too for relationships, all of the relationships that we're in. This isn't just the industry. This is every single person that we interact with. It's who we surround ourselves with. We most reflect the 5 people that we surround ourselves with.
Oh, yeah.
So like what you said with surrounding yourself around people who are successful, people who challenge you in these ways, that's an active choice. People who don't do those things, they tend to be a little bit more frustrated at the world, a little more, it's everybody else and not them. And like generally speaking, people who are most successful in leadership positions tend to have that sort of focus. Like when we're mindfully looking at other people's perspectives too.
Absolutely. You are exhibiting an extremely entrepreneurial spirit. And I see like 4 things, right? Mindfulness, time or self-management, Reiki, and electrical. And my guess is that you in your mind already have a plan of how to make a business out of that.
Oh yeah, I have actually already done it.
Good for you.
The time management, I would even do like helping people with home organization and cleaning, because decluttering is huge for the mindful living side of things. Doing the holistic healing and working with crystals, and like having people go more inwards with those individualized workshops. I had created a little organization here in Connecticut called Reiki Babies, because that was my son's nickname.
Okay.
And the area that I suck in is charging people, because it's like, I don't like to exploit that, but then it ends up meaning that I'm also not being a good business person. So at this point, like I'm not focused on that at all right now, but I have plans in mind for how I want to run an electrical company one day. I am taking notes of companies all across the US and Canada, like, and dissecting like things that I like and that I want to incorporate, and also things that I'm experiencing that I want to make sure, because I think that every experience we have has value. And so the things that I'm experiencing are showing me ways I don't want to be. I was actually reached out to by a company in Canada for help that bridges all these things together. And I'm like, why haven't I thought of that? So
Ding, ding, ding.
fully like in the planning stages of having a company where I am bringing in the culture side of things and this mindful technique, like me traveling to different companies for multi-day workshops, breaking down the teams and coming up with the different personality tests, what personalities work best for those companies, what it is that they already do that they're really successful in, and just figure out how to make them be their best selves. Essentially doing that sort of like a consult within the construction industry. I just don't know fully what it looks like yet. It's exciting for me.
Yeah.
This could work around my kids' schedule too, and I could help trailblaze the industry into this shift that is so needed.
You lit up when you started talking about it. Like and there's no doubt in my mind that you're gonna make it happen. You see the gap, and now you have somebody that's saying, hey, I think you could help me. We desperately need it in our industry. I used to work for TD Industries, or mechanical contract, in Texas, and our Houston business unit, they put together an amazing program targeting specifically bringing women into the industry. And that thing's it's got legs. It's been in place for, I don't know, 4-5 years now, maybe longer. And my point is there's a lot of organizations out there that are on the leading edge of that, but there's not a lot. There really isn't a lot. And to your point, I think people are starting to recognize what got us here won't take us there.
Well, and especially with this new generation, I feel like understands valuing themselves more than we were ever taught.
You're exactly right. We were conditioned to subjugate ourselves to the company. And this generation really is highlighting like, okay, but this isn't like, what are you going to give me? Because I'm giving you some of me. We are one total being. And too often the thinking is you leave your personal business at home. And that's kind of impossible.
There is a time and place for incentivization. What is it that we're working toward? You'll get more productivity out of people if you worked 4-day weeks. The guys are going to get to go home earlier and they're going to feel like they're winning. That's an example of how you can incentivize.
So what do you want our audience to know about you?
Oh, geez, I don't know. So I'll be 34 years old in the summer, and I am an apprentice. I have around 5,000 hours. I'm a mom of 4. I live over here in Connecticut, and I started doing construction, being back in electrical again 2 weeks before the pandemic hit here. I don't really know. I think that the audience kind of got to learn quite a lot about me in more intimate ways than probably most. At the end of the day, I hope that people feel like I brought some sort of value to their time listening. And I hope that they feel they aren't the only ones that are experiencing the good, bad, and the ugly, because there's so much greatness to the industries. I absolutely love what it is that I do, and I'll be damned if any sour people are going to ever stop me. I have no intention of stopping. I just have the biggest intention of finding the company that I'm meant to land with so that I can bring them and myself to the top, because I have no plans of failure at all.
Right.
I'm just a regular person.
Human beings are amazing. So from that perspective, I would say yes. I think you have some very special gifts and talents, which everybody does, but you know what they are, and you're building them, you're nurturing them, you're growing them for the benefit of others.
Yes.
And that is not regular. Thinking of the future, what fingerprint do you want to leave on the world?
Probably a whole hand.
Not just one finger. I'm a face palm that bad boy. All right.
Yeah, I think that everywhere I go, it's hard to not notice me. And it's because I am loud and I have convictions and I have integrity and I have the voice and I'm not afraid to use it. And that is one of the things that probably do set me apart. When I feel like I can't speak my truth, be open, that's when I start to feel those like icky things, like I feel really like I get anxious. I was feeling so anxious with that other company because it didn't matter if I spoke up. It didn't at all. It didn't matter. I guess I would like people who run companies to just pay attention to how their leadership is making their people feel. You can really destroy even the strongest people. Like I'm a pretty strong person and I'm not broken, but by the end there, my productivity level, I was on edge. I was constantly feeling defeated. And you don't want a team full of people who feel defeated. I understand the industry, it's a little rough. We need to be able to take so much, but there comes a point where just being a basic person is important.
We have to value people.
Right.
We have to value them. They're not a commodity.
And at the very least, don't value them, but make them believe you do.
Right. If you can't value them, at least treat them like you do. Pretend. Yeah. Come on for 8 hours a day.
Make it if you have to, man.
Expert advice. Is there anything that you wanted to cover or present to the L&M family out there that we haven't touched on?
Not in particular. Is there anything that you can think of?
No, I think we got into some really good stuff that I'm joyful that we got into it because I wasn't even planning on it.
Yeah.
And specifically the hard, the would you say the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Like, because there's a lot of bad and ugly. I've not done a good job highlighting that.
This is not just construction.
You got it.
This is everywhere. Construction is not privileged to be the only ones that experience these challenges. Construction's probably been checked the least. By no means is this a special scenario. And a lot of times when it comes to stuff like the raw, vulnerable, deep level healing work, it all starts with recognizing. We were talking about substance abuse on job sites.
Yep.
Think of with AA or any of these substance abuse things, like the first step is recognizing there's a problem. And when we recognize it, we're able to then work with it. Growth lives in uncomfortable places.
Yeah.
We got to go there sometimes.
We got to go there more often. You know, you brought up AA, and I have a lot of experience with substance abuse, and not from like academic study. I have the experience from actually living it. And so I still struggle with addictive behaviors. You know, my mind is that way. Part of the reason the name of our podcast is Learnings and Missteps is because of that, right? Like most of the deepest learning I've had was a result of repeating the same stupid missteps. And when I say like I'm talking about drug and alcohol abuse. I lived it for decades, and you nailed it. When I've been in treatment, the first thing is awareness. You got to be aware that you have an issue, you have a problem. And let me tell you, the first 6 years, even though everything in my life said I had a problem, I didn't think I had a problem. I had to be reminded over and over, getting arrested, losing relationships, people hating me, spending enormous amounts of money, like over and over and over and over again, until finally I'm like,
it just clicked.
I might have a problem. It's that we got to be aware of it. Then I've got to accept it. And once I accepted it, I was able to do something about it. And it's the same thing with every ugly, secret, dark skeleton that we have. We've got to accept it. And once you accept it, then you can change it. I really enjoyed this conversation. I really did.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Man, you are one dedicated listener, sticking with us all the way through to the very, very end. Please know that this podcast dies without you, and we invite you to share how the episode's impacting you, along with your thoughts, questions, and suggestions. You have been gracious with your time, so we added social media links in the show notes to make it super easy for you to connect with us. Be kind to yourself, stay cool, and we'll talk at you next time.